Good day to you. Welcome to the first episode of An Arizonan here in 2026 here on the old YouTube. Today's episode is brought to you by you. If you clicked on it, you are the sponsor. So do all the social media stuff if you want to. I'm not really into social media. I'm not into being an influencer. I'm really not. It's obvious by the amount that I post here on the YouTube channel. But I was watching some clips on Instagram the other day, and I saw one of my favorite leadership podcasts say something. And I've been hearing this from a lot of leadership podcasts, especially if they come from the GWOT community or the Global War on Terror veteran community. And I served in the Marine Corps from 2002 to 2006. And a big call from our generation right now is for local leaders to stand up and lead and fight corruption in the government and whatnot. And I grew up in a service family, and I grew up under some really great mentors and leaders who had served in the Marine Corps when I was a kid. And while I was growing up, they were in different aspects of my life mentoring me. And the fundamental thing of leadership that they taught me, and then the Marine Corps reinforced deeply, and then I carried it onto the fire department with me, is you cannot ask anything out of your people that you're not willing to do yourself. So if we're going to be calling for people to stand up and lead, and we're going to be calling for people to fight government corruption, we have to know what the cost of that is. And the reason I'm making this video today is I know that cost. Because in 2022, I stood up to local corruption here in the Maricopa County area with a fire district that had gone rogue. It had been rogue for a long time. And just to give you a quick resume on it, I was a battalion safety officer, I was a union vice president, ran some elections, was part of all the long-term strategic planning, helped out with some court battles. So I was deep in the game. And when I decided to stand, the reason I could stand was because I was that deep in the game. We had been covering up, different activities that I don't want to get into the details of them because I don't want, look, my life's been made miserable for coming forward with the case that I had. And my current employment is being affected from it. The last job I had was, I had a union guy show up and shake me down at my new employer the week I was given a testimony to an investigation at my old fire district. So I'm here to tell you, standing and fighting government corruption is not for the faint of heart. You have to be committed to it. You have to have a wife that is willing to go through hell. So if we're going to ask that of you, we need to know the cost, because it happened to me. And if it can happen to a guy that's a union vice president, has all the accolades I had, I'm a Marine Corps veteran, I'm born and raised here in Arizona, I'm a second generation firefighter, deep connections with a lot of people. If it can happen to me, it can happen to anybody. And anybody who's on that lower rung than I was at, they're screwed. The reason I was able to retire, I retired over all this stuff, is because there's this concept inside of PTSD called moral injury. And I have PTSD, it's well documented. I don't care about talking about it because it doesn't bother me. I have PTSD because my leadership did illegal things my entire career and I helped. And I can say that we did illegal things, honestly. And if anybody wants to say I'm defaming character, I would love to go to Discovery, right? So I have that kind of swagger about me because I know where all the bodies are buried, because I still have the shovel and the grid coordinates. And that's how I was able to retire. I had so much dirt on my leadership that they could not stop me. That's not every leader in local government. That's not every leader in government. So what happened to the fire service? Well, the fire service here in Arizona has never been fully developed. It's being the baby 48 state. Our constitution's a little loose. We're a right to work state. We do have union representation, but it doesn't mean much, especially if the union is signing off on the abuse. And that's my case, right? So I'm the only union officer that stood up for this. The rest of the union officers wanted to bury it. I got outvoted, right? This is what democracy looks like. It doesn't matter what the rules say, it doesn't matter what the laws say. And I've sent all this stuff to the FBI, as well as the Arizona Attorney General. So I've taken it off my plate. I've given it onto the government to go ahead and take care of the government, but I don't have high hopes. So I'm making this video today to let the internet know that there are people out there who have tried to stand up. There are people who have tried to stop corruption at the level that they could, and it cost us everything. 6 figures in debt. I can't work here in Arizona for my new company anymore. I have to start to branch out to other states where I can be of a better impact. which I'm okay with because the mission of the company I now work for is so amazing that I don't care. It's bigger than Arizona, it's bigger than my fire district, and it's bigger than the union, it's bigger than all those things. But Arizona developing the way it did, we wound up getting a lot of transplants from outside of here. And with that, we brought in a lot of people from back east, the Midwest, and they all have the concept of how the union works back there. So we imported East Coast union thuggery, is what I like to call it, here into Arizona. And I was a union thug, flat out, right? If you had a problem, you called me. I made 4 or 5 other phone calls to get ahead of it or figure out how we could, best crash land this thing into a field. And that was my job. That was my job for 6 heartbreaking years because it shouldn't be this way. We should follow the rules and meet the standards and do our job the right way, but we make so many excuses for our behavior that we can't hold accountability. And once the union starts doing this for one person, everybody else expects it. And what happened with us was we had a union leadership that the people running it, one of the leaders, I'll tell the story, I don't care. He literally took a taser off of a police officer's gun belt, removed the cartridge that shoots the prongs, and then used the zapper aspect of it onto a supervisor while they were on duty. So he was a firefighter, and he tased a captain with it as a joke. And then, ha ha ha. Well, a lot of stuff happened with after that story, but somehow the guy who tased his supervisor, got to keep his job, and the captain that he tased got fired. And then everybody voted for that guy for union president because, well, if he can save his job in that kind of environment, he can save mine. And that was a common trope around the fire station when that happened. Well, those roles are only 2 years long, so I ran opposed to some of the people that were supporting that. A couple other great folks did too, and we were able to take the agency I was at and go from where we were at to a much better agency, but we were still doing the same game, just our version of it, right? We were the good guys to play the dark game. And we did get a lot of good things. First MOU, which is a big deal in the union world. It means that you have a contract with your employer so that they have to follow it, but you have to be willing to take them to court and have the war chest to do that, and the time, and and then you're gonna play stupid games while you're at court together. So nobody ever does it unless it's really, really bad. And what happened with me was one of my firefighters had something happen to her, and I'm not going to get any further than that. But the way that it was handled by the administration, by my leadership, was, I believe, illegal, and that's what I turned into the FBI and whatnot. So personal cost. Nobody will talk to me. I have no friends from the fire service except for one, my brother Mike. Love that guy. Other folks, if they bump into me at conventions and things, they'll be nice, but it's not the same. What else happened? They called my employer. I got taken out of a convention where I was selling for my new company, and they had the police remove me from that convention as a trespasser, so that was fun. 6 figures in debt, that's a good time. It's completely stifled the ability for me to grow my company and whatnot, or actually bring a product to life for my company. They already have their products on the market. The reason I'm on the team is I have a patent for an aspect of the company's overall mission that, again, just can't bring to life because we don't have the financial ability. And there's no GoFundMe attached to this. Notice that. I'm not out here begging for money. I'm working my problem. What I'm saying is standing up to government corruption with the wrong people in power will cost you everything. So if we're going to ask you to do that, we need to be aware that we might be asking people to detonate their lives, destroy their careers, lose their entire friend group. And again, you better have a family that's ready for that. I'm blessed, mine is, right? We're Christians. I'm not going to get into denominations because I think interdenominational rivalry is the tool of the devil, and it gets us to fight as believers. So that what you do to the least of thee, you do unto me is, it's written. So if they're going to do that to my firefighter, do that to me, why do you think nobody else is standing up? They're going to roll everybody. Why could I do it? I'm born and raised here in Arizona. I have family that every single one of them is proud of me that I did it. My internal small tribe is proud of what I did. I'm welcome at barbecues. I'm welcome everywhere there. The people I spent 15 years creating deep friendships and bonds with on the fire department, I can no longer interact with. That's the cost. You can't put money on that. You just can't. 6 figures in debt means nothing. Losing all my friends, that sucks. So I guess they really weren't friends, right? Or they weren't brothers and sisters like they said. But I say all these things not as like, don't feel bad for me. Don't. I'm healthier than I've been in decades. I'm happier than I've been in decades. Me and my wife are great. My kids are killing it. It's, leaving the corrupt fire service gave me my life back. But it also was a heavy, heavy cost. And to the point, if we're calling for people to stand up, we did. Some of us did. And we got rolled. And nobody came to help us. Nobody cheered us on. Nobody said, hey, great job. We just got rolled, and our families paid the price. Not looking for accolades on that, by the way. Don't care. I literally am at the point where I was born free here in America, and I can make my life as good as I want to. And, unless something changes majorly, I'm gonna keep focusing on that, right? I'm not going to sit around and go, oh, it's all corrupt, it's all broke, it's never gonna get fixed, right? I'm gonna show up and vote. I'm gonna show up, like, I'm moving out of the the city I'm in, because it's atrocious. But that's a whole other conversation. A lot of great places to live in Arizona, a lot of great jurisdictions, a lot of places that aren't as corrupt as where I was. So when I say that we're broken, and I say it's, coming from this East Coast Union type of thuggery that we brought in, it's not everywhere, but it's affecting everywhere. You can't really break into a fire department without having the union at least know who you are, or at least sign off on you, right? Like, they always put a union guy on the every interview, whether you're trying to whether you're applying, or you're trying to promote, or trying to get a special assignment. And those gatekeepers wind up being kind of the people who, if you're not in with them, they're going to stop you. And then once you get into that, you're compromised, right? Because it's actually illegal for us to manipulate hiring and promotions, but we do it all the time. And once you're involved in that, it's guns on me, guns on you. We're all going to lose our jobs. Everybody keep their mouth shut. And it parallels that in what you see, like, with Jeffrey Epstein. And I hate to go to like that level, but it's the same cult system, right? Once we break the rules together, nobody can hold each other accountable. And I was part of that system for a long time, and I was a guy trying to hold accountability, or trying to get it to stabilize to where we weren't. I mean, a guy gets picked up for a DUI and we can keep his job. That's one thing. A person gets picked up for crimes against children, and we're calling reporters to get it removed from the news because we don't want the bad press. That's a completely different thing, and that did happen. And we did get that story scrubbed out of the local media. So we were up to some stuff, and I couldn't take it. My soul couldn't take it. Like I said, I'm a Christian, I'm a believer, so I believe in a soul. It's not just a psyche, not just something you take to the grave and you're sad about. It's something that you have to account for at the end of the ride. And being a paramedic for 14 years, I watched a lot of people's rides end horribly. So I might go out terribly. I don't want to have a horrible conversation because I just decided to be like everybody else around me and keep my mouth shut. It's not how I was raised. We were raised to defend, I don't want to say the weak, but we're supposed to defend the innocent. We're supposed to defend human dignity. And we didn't do that. We became dog eat dog like every other culture around us. We became clean up your public image so that you look the best because it's Instagram, right? And it's fallen apart. I can lament about our collapse of recruitment numbers, our retention problems, our morale issues, our funding issues. The fire service here in Greater Arizona is struggling. And it's struggling all over the country. I've been to a lot of different national events and whatnot, and it's funding and a whole bunch of other stuff. It's leaders who are hiding things that are being done. It's union officers that are involved, like I was involved back in the day. And I wish I could say that it's changed, but I get text messages and calls and talk to people, not from my old fire department, but I have a lot of friends that are firefighters who left my old fire department and work for other fire departments now. So I hear what they're going through, and there's a lot of similar stories. So unfortunately, our culture is dog eat dog right now. I got to look better than you, be better than you, all those things so that I can get the promotion, I can get the cookie. I'm perfect, you're not, but I'm humble and I have my mistakes, right? And everybody just takes a handful of mistakes that they've made and sells them as like, hey, here's the nobility that I'm going to present to you. But they're never going to tell you what they did at the darkest, right? And that's kind of where I'm different, is I'll tell you the darkest stuff I did because it was never that dark, because I had lines, I had things I wouldn't be involved in. I did not call a single reporter to get that story removed from the press. Other guys did. Me and another union officer looked at each other and were like, I'm not doing that. I went and found my wife. We were at a union convention when that order came down from our chief. And he's willing to testify about that. So I have no qualms about sharing that story publicly, because he was sickened by it as well. And what I'm getting at is, I'm not the only one that has a problem with these things. A lot of firefighters do, and they speak up, and then they pay the price. They don't get promoted. They don't, get the next assignment. They then become somebody who can't really work overtime or shift trade everywhere because they've upset people, and it really affects their lives. So, yeah, I know the cost of standing up to that corruption. If I'm going to ask you to do it, I'm going to tell you the cost first. Same thing I would do with a fire recruit. A lot of captains like, I'm going to make sure you come home every night. I'm not going to tell you that. I'm going to make sure that if you don't come home, it was for the right reason, right? Because we might have to risk our lives to save lives. That's the only promise I can make you, is that if we do pay the ultimate price, it will be for a righteous call, not because I was an idiot. And I think a lot of the firefighters that worked for me, a lot of them were older, more mature, and they liked that approach because it wasn't Disneyland. And the same thing goes for if you want to stand up to government corruption, right? It's not going to go the way that the TV shows you. It's not going to go the way that the internet shows you. It's going to go the way that it happens to real people all the time, where we lose everything, and the people who did the things that were wrong are still getting the big paycheck, still getting all the accolades, and everybody thinks they're great, and everybody thinks that you're the broken one. So that's the cost. So if you're going to do it, be ready for it. I will say it's worth it. My soul's clean. I sleep like a baby now. I only sleep like 6 hours. Wake up ready to go work out. So I'm out here hiking today. So my life is infinitely better personally, but it's, as far as like my social status and my ability to go have as much fun as I want to with fun tickets has completely been reduced. And that is the cost. So as we go forward with this conversation with media folks and whatnot, I want to have that perspective out there, because it's a real cost to real lives, to real people, to ask us to do those things. And then when it goes horribly wrong, what do? We pick up the pieces however we can. And I'm not the only one that did this, by the way. I got a couple friends that did the same thing, and they've put their lives together, and they're living humble but very reduced lives from what they should be, from who they were and what happened to them because of their careers. So I know how blessed I am to have all the opportunities I have, right? And that's what I want to get at is I was able to do it because I had those opportunities. The reason most people stay silent is they don't. They need to pay their mortgage, they need to get to their pension, and they're just trying to keep their head down and survive. And that's the conversation I've had with dozens of the people that I came on with back in the early 2000s, because something shifted. Something shifted desperately. And we are basically just projecting goodness through all of our interaction with the public when we are actually struggling as far as finances go and everything else on the fire department here in Arizona. I understand it to be the same way other places, right? The Palisades fire really showed us Los Angeles has got some issues as well. Just, it is what it is. But I'm gonna wrap it up with that. It has a high cost. If we're gonna ask it of you, we better have been able to have done it ourselves. And by the way, this was the loss I had, all right? I got rid of a corrupt chief. I got rid of a couple of corrupt captains as a union officer, right? They would target people, they would lie, they would do these things, and we'd catch them and we would get rid of them. So there were two captains, one that forged documents to spend money, the other one was abusing people and changing his official stories. Both of those guys resigned in lieu of termination because we don't fire anybody so they can go ahead and feed their families. We let them go on and be somebody else's problem, and that is an issue. But yeah, so got those guys to leave, a couple chiefs that were pretty abusive, issues with funds, they all resigned in lieu of. So, it wasn't that I tried one time and it didn't work. I had a pretty good history of rooting some of that stuff out as a union officer, because I would connect with the people that were, abused in it. And this last one came under a new chief where the rules were very different. He might have run for local office, so he operates the way the politicians do. And that's when I had enough. So I declared I was going to retire from moral injury under PTSD, and I did, because I'm not going to follow illegal orders. And you have to know all that, by the way, if you're going to do this stuff, because the way all that works legally, and I need to put this in there. Sorry, I was going to wrap it up, but I got to put this in there. I'm a sworn employee. Like, the public still pays me, right? I actually work for the public, right? That's what all your politicians do too, but nobody holds them accountable to that. You hire them, they spend your money on you, and then you rehire them. That's how it's supposed to work. So as a sworn employee, because you're risking your life for the public, you swear an oath to God. They don't ask what that means. They just go, okay, sworn oath to God. They don't ask your denomination. They don't ask any of those things. So part of that terms of employment is that I won't go against God or the public. Well, I don't think the public would appreciate what we did, and I don't think that God would appreciate what we did, right? Because I believe God is a triune God through Jesus. So I'm not going to violate the God of my understanding under the First Amendment and also do something that the public would not be appreciative of, that their funds were used for this. And I don't have to do that. And I argued that to 3 psychologists and a bunch of lawyers, and they all went, here you go, buddy, you get to retire. I get $48,000 a year tax-free now, right? It's a partial pension. Not bad, not great. But yeah, I get paid tax-free now because I stood for my beliefs. So it wasn't all for nothing, all right? I just want to make sure that's perfectly clear. But you have to understand the terms of your employment. You have to understand all the things that are going on in and around who you are, what rights you have. And again, I've given this to media, I've given this to lawyers, I've given this right to the directly to my old leaders, I've given this to the union, I've given it to everybody, and nobody will touch it. They're all like, that's not our job. That is literally the thing I get when I hand this to anybody. Thankfully, the FBI and the Arizona Attorney General decided they were going to look into it. That was a couple months back. So I know their case logs are deep, but it might not be something that's big enough for their bosses to really want to pursue and waste the money and manpower and resources on. So that sucks, right? So I have a firefighter who something happened to her, and it's still an active case. And there are law enforcement agencies looking into it, but my life's been ruined for the last 4 years. So just know what you're asking for and just know what you're getting into. But like I said, for me, it was worth it. It might not be worth it for everybody. And I think that's why so many people don't stand. But I had a different boss to work for. I grew up in a service family. My dad was a firefighter. My granddad served in World War II. Stepdad served Vietnam era. We are public servants. We work for you. And if somebody has that job and doesn't have that attitude, they shouldn't be wearing that uniform, because every time somebody thanks me for my service, it's because I held it the way that they expected me to while I was in that uniform, right? So that's the only way I can feel good when somebody thanks me for my service, by the way, as if I did it for real. That's just me. Some other people can do it other ways. But yeah, that's my message for today. We can call for leadership all day long, but we're asking people to do some stuff that's pretty tough. And I hope some of the leadership podcasts can appreciate that, because I'm going to try to send this to a couple of them. But yeah, it's we're just in a time where lie to get ahead is the most popular thing, and we see it going on from Washington D.C. through all of our trusted institutions. And everybody's just like, well, I'm going to take my turn, I think. That's my personal theory, right? Either that or we're under some sort of possession, one of the two. But I really think it's just dog eat dog and grind, look at me culture that's really kind of hit a point where we're asking some good questions at least, and hopefully we can get through this together, and that's where these kind of conversations are going to be absolutely critical in my opinion. So take care of yourself, take care of everybody around you, do the right thing, and it'll all work out. Make sure you vote well, research your candidates, make sure they're serving you with the tax dollars you give them because you hired them, right? I guess that would be my other point. And if you're a firefighter out there and you have voted for union leadership that's, giving you bad stuff, vote for better union representation, right? Unfortunately, I was on an agency that wanted to have that corrupt representation, and that means that you have a broken culture and means you need to leave if you're not. Otherwise, it's going to break you too. And my PTSD now is just, it's a lot better. But what happens is when I see injustice in leadership, I get cranky. And I start telling people what a jerk they are. And I don't want to be that guy anymore, right? I was a professional a-hole when necessary for a long time. And I'm trying to raise loving kids and love my wife and do better things in life. So I don't want to be like that anymore. I just want to say, hey, do the right thing. Go forth and sin no more. It's in the book. Just do your job the right way moving forward, and everything will be okay. Vote for people better moving forward, everything will be okay. But we're so focused on, I get it, man. I got to bounce out of here and run 10 errands for the the company and the family and all those things. So I'm not saying I'm not I'm very empathetic to the American working class currently, but carve some time out. Like Jocko Willink says, discipline equals freedom. Have the discipline to carve out some time to investigate who you're voting for, what their character is, what their values, their vision is, and make this place better, right? That's our only way out. If we don't embrace that, we're going to keep being at each other's throats and talking about all the corruption and what happened over there, and oh, that's salacious. Yeah, salacious stuff is happening everywhere. Hire people that aren't going to do salacious things. By the way, I'm not running for office, but don't ever. I'll tell you how to vote, but I'm never running for office. That's you got to sell your soul when you get to that level, unless we start sending better people, and that's the only way it's going to change. So, anyway, that's it for today. Take care of yourself. Have a good one.